much for taking the time today. It's really a pleasure to get a chance to spend some time with you, and you've got such a storied history. Before we get started with some of the questions, I have to compliment you on the airplane behind you. I've had the opportunity to fly in as steerman. I've never flown as pilot in command, only as a passenger, but they're beautiful, and I love seeing them.
I hope it struck you like it did me. I was hooked.
I mean, the engines alone are a thing of beauty. Those radial engines look fantastic, and I can only imagine flying in them, especially in a challenging sort of wartime environment or even a training environment as a young man.
Yes, for sure.
So you probably know a little bit about Jet Aviation. We have about 4,000 people in 50 locations globally. And one of the things that we're passionate about is flight. And I wonder if you could just share with me a little bit of information about how your passion for aviation started. When did you first get the bug?
I got the bug when I had my first flight in that PT-17 that you see behind me down at Tuskegee Moton Field in Alabama before they had a fixed runway. You know, whichever way the wind was, we could line up and take off that direction. Of course, they've got a fixed runway now, so that's a little different. But that first flight in that PT-17 was a real thrill indeed. I kind of have to laugh now sometimes because my daughter, I was able to get into the airplane here just a few months back when they were at here in the area, and the P-51s were flying, but they wanted me to be in the PT-17 meeting them when they were landing, and that's the PT-17 that's behind me, but she's already laughed because she said folks wanted to help me to get in the cockpit. I was already in.
Yeah, no sales pitch required.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but why and how that struck me is still, I don't have the answer, but I was a happy camper, and it struck me for being able, and I was fortunate enough to actively fly 27 of my 30 years of service.
That's fantastic. It's a fantastic story, and I hope that a lot of other young people out there take heart of these types of stories and start flying. It's all about flight and getting people started at a young age. So maybe to take a divergence into the area, the Tuskegee Airmen. How do you think? Maybe we could talk about it from a historical perspective. But so I know that the Tuskegee Airmen was a all African American military pilot group that fought during World War II. But it'd be worthwhile if you could just share with us a little bit of information about how did that come about? How was that organization formed? Again, I'm aware of the historical impact it's had on American aviation and global aviation, but it'd be great to hear it from you directly.
Well, that's interesting, and I didn't know it at the time, but the status in our United States mobilization policy came from a 1925 Army War College study. That study's subject was, how would the African American be used if America got involved in another war? They claimed they studied the issue, and paragraph 3 of a 4-page report that was sent to Washington indicated that the African American was physically qualified to serve. The African American is mentally inferior to the white man. The African American is morally inferior to the white man, etc., etc. Therefore, could not qualify to fly and maintain and fly an aircraft, but certainly could cook food, dig ditches, dig roads, drive trucks, but do nothing technically. This was sent to Washington to be part of the country's mobilization policy, and Washington bought it. Well, just like election now, there was a president interested in some support, and And in 1942 time frame, or even 41 time frame, when America decided to help their allies in Europe, didn't change segregation, but there was opportunity to enlist, to get jobs in the mobilization build up and that type of thing. But that policy stood, but the president wanted some votes. And with pressure, got the Army to do something, but the Army said, we've studied the issue, we know it isn't going to fail, but we'll authorize a squadron. What's a squadron at that time? 34 pilots, 24 aircraft, but it said, and all of the necessary support. So that's a couple hundred technicians to maintain and get the airplane flyable. But you still needed medical communications supply, other sources. That's another couple hundred people. So that all became, and although the Army said, we're experimenting, we know it's going to fail, we'll authorize this 99th Pursuit Squadron. Well, they didn't fail, but the Army never changed their policy. And so that's the background of the now called Tuskegee Airmen, because segregation didn't go away. Training, fortunately, standards weren't changed, and we were able to meet them. And after the 99th proved successful, 3 additional single-engine fighter squadrons became the 332nd Fighter Group, the 100, 301st, and 302nd Squadrons. A little bit later, in fact, when I graduated in June of '43, my flight instructor said, too bad they don't have a bomber program for you guys, because I think you'd make a good bomber pilot. I didn't ask him what he meant, but neither of us knew that they had already approved, and a few months later, medium bomber training began at Tuskegee Army Airfield. 4 squadrons, and again, with all of their necessary support, also became a part of the Tuskegee Airmen program. And although they didn't get into combat because the big bomb in Japan was dropped and brought things to a quick end, they fought the battle against segregation in training here at home. I think it was Pittsburgh Courier, I believe, put out an article at one time saying we were fighting for a double victory, victory against Hitler in Europe and victory against racism here at home. And the bomb group fought that battle against racism here at home because of, even though Army regulations were beginning to change, there was still leadership that insisted on segregation, and segregation continued. The Army never changed the policy. War ended in 45. 48, United States Air Force separated from the ground forces, and it was in their determination that equal access and equal opportunity became possible.
That's fantastic history and the story. Obviously, diversity and inclusion is so topical right now, especially given some of the more recent events. I mean, we as a company are trying to do all that we can to support diversity and inclusion and all its shapes and forms, whether it be gender, race, religion, regardless.
You know, fortunately, the Air Force was backed by a very
courageous. I mentioned we're a 50 location global company.
I say the Tuskegee Airmen was backed by a very courageous president, the Air Force rather, Harry Truman, who issued executive order mandating all of the services need to integrate. The Air Force led the way in May of '49. Army and Navy really got on board during the Korean operation.
That's fantastic. I mean, how has your experience with the Tuskegee Airmen shaped your life? And what are some of the learnings you could share with us?
Yeah, well, I've always said I don't have anything good to say about segregation. And I said, oh, wait a minute now, don't come to a conclusion too fast there. The fact that we were together from 1941 to 1949, we developed lifelong friendships out of that, even today. So those of us who went through the training and the many hundreds of support people for the it was pilot training, certainly the focus, but the hundreds of support people making it possible and all the skills. Um, those years, as I say, lifelong friendships came from and still exist today. And then looking back, the value lessons that sustained us are equally good for our young folks today. And our young people are our country's future, and what they face, certainly those value lessons can be passed on and are always appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, my father-in-law, I'm in his study right now. He was a Royal Air Force a squadron commander, flew Vulcan bombers amongst a bunch of other airplanes, and he's the one that got me interested in aviation. So, what advice would you give to other youth of today who are, say, in their teens, maybe high school or later, who have an interest in getting in aviation?
Well, it's interesting because we tell the young folks now, your training, you've heard of planning to go to Mars, and when I'm talking to middle school kids, and I said, guess who's going to make the trip? I think the planners are all going to be a little old when they get everything properly prepared. So guess who's going to be making a trip? It's going to be one of you. So you're part of the part of that future for sure. But that's where I like to pass on my 4 P's to the young folks: perceive, prepare, perform, persevere. All 4 of those are good for their planning future. They're getting the education, their performance, and they're willing to be a part of what our country's future is all about.
That's those 4 P's. I'll remember those 4 P's, and they're good learning lesson for people. I mean, we're about enabling global flight. We're always trying to get people engaged in aviation, and what you just shared will be invaluable for us.
Thank you for
General,
that. We wish you
I
well, because that's such a good deal, and the young folks need it because there's so much other out there they can put their fingers on. Uh, but hopefully never overlook those opportunities that aviation space careers provide.
yeah, we're always looking for new entrants to the aviation or the aerospace business. So whether they be pilots, mechanics, or some other element of the field,
Yeah.
we're looking forward to it. So, General, it's been a real honor spending some time with you today. I know you just finished up your West Coast run, and I appreciate you spending a little more time on the East Coast with me.
Well, thank you so much. It's just good to be a part of the aviation community because, as I've said, whether you just like to walk around the plane, kick the tires, maintain it, or get in and fly it, it's a family affair for anybody with their interest. And certainly to pass that on to the young folks, we wish you continued success.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, and look, safe travels and stay healthy and well. And my best to your family as well.
Appreciate that. Likewise, stay safe and
Well,
God bless our country in the future. And we pray for the blessings for our safety.
God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.